I wake up into just like glorious visions, man. Like just
Wow.
like I don't know how to describe exactly what it was at first, but it was like just the coming on of these like everything just seemed like golden. And
Mm.
I could the shamans were now playing like drum like percussion instruments, and one of them was playing like a flute. I'm starting to like see the space we're in, but I'm seeing it made out of some ethereal like material. I'm not seeing it
Mm.
like for I'm not really seeing it.
Mm.
And I kind of start to I feel all of our presence in there, everyone laying down in this big tent, and I feel the shamans, and I feel all that. And then like in the most casual way, I just see this like figure sit down like in front of me.
Dude, what's up?
Not much, man.
Welcome to
How,
JRE, dude.
thank you, thank you. Did you see the Tim Heidecker thing? I
What was
gotta send
that?
it to you. It's like Tim from Tim and Eric. He
Mm.
does like a podcast, and he did like a podcast where it's him and two guys, and they were just pretending to be the Joe Rogan Experience for like an hour, and
Nice.
just they're kind of just like circling around and saying nothing, and it's so funny, dude. You can tell they've all watched like hours of them,
Yeah,
but it's fucking great. I'll send it to you,
nice. Well, I think we can circle around and do nothing
dude. That's
instead.
exactly what I'm looking forward to. So
Yeah, bro. Well, I've been waiting pretty patiently to hear your story of ayahuasca, and you were in Costa Rica, right?
yeah, yeah. So
Nice. Set it
yeah,
up.
man.
Set us up, man.
Yeah, picture this. Uh, no, yeah, it was incredible experience. I was just like thumbing through my journal a little bit because I did write like very short journal entries each day, and so I was just kind of being reminded of it. But yeah, it's like the whole story is of my trip is like something, and I think the main thing I want to focus on is like the first day of the first ayahuasca trip, because that was like the one that
Sure.
has stuck with me the most.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, going to Costa Rica was beautiful. I'd never been anywhere like that, and I got to
Mhm.
just like chill in the jungle for like a day before I went
You
to this
just,
retreat.
it seemed pretty spontaneous.
Yeah, like that was kind of the cool part about it is I was going to go to the dentist, and I like this wasn't even in the back of my mind, but like a week before I left, I maybe even less than that, maybe like a few days before I left, it just occurred to me like, oh shit, is Costa Rica one of those countries where you can like where they have retreats that are
uh,
legal, And
uh-huh.
so I started doing some snooping, and yeah, I started getting really excited because I'm like, oh man, like I can't like necessarily afford it, but like I can swing it. And
Hmm.
it seemed like it could be the right time. And I started looking around, and all the places I found were like booked up, and I was like, oh man, I just got excited about this for nothing. And then I
Mm.
found this one like Reddit thread where like someone was asking if anyone had any recommendations, and one guy recommended this guy Carlos at Nada Brahma Medical Retreat, Nada Brahma Healing Center.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like in the mountains of San Ramon, like an hour north of San Jose, which is where I was flying into. And I just happened to check, and they just happened to have one spot open. I was like, oh
Damn.
man, I don't feel like I can
Hmm.
like say no to that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, man, I left, and then I extended my trip by a week just to fit it in. And I was like, okay, it was spontaneous in that like I didn't think I was going to do it, but on the other hand, it's like it's something I've been thinking about doing for so long and like
Yeah.
hoping to do that.
Yeah.
I felt at least a little bit like as ready as I could be to go into that experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah. But yeah. So the first thing that hits you when you get out there is just like you're in like the rainforest, and it's just like incredibly beautiful, man. And I've never seen anything like it. And I spent the day like watching like sloths at this little like
Mm.
sloth trail, and I learned that sloths eat these leaves that have THC in them.
Mm.
So like sloths are all day like slothing around and like getting high with just like little bits of THC in these leaves.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like,
Huh.
okay. And I started just being like, I feel you sloth. Like this is what I need to learn here
Mm.
is like to be the sloth, like to be to be like okay being up in that tree and just in the sun and just like, releasing all the anxiety and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing that I always try to, you know, how there's that whole idea of like return to monkey.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something in us evolutionarily that we're just meant to be like lounging monkeys. Like,
Yes,
I
dude.
think there's some part of our nature that's like, you know, maybe we could still work 20 hours a week or whatever, but we should
Right.
also still be lounging monkeys
Yes.
or
We absolutely
THC
should.
sloths.
It's a good band name also. Um, yeah, dude. Yeah, I agree, man. It's when you see the lounging monkey, you know it. You're just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, like that is me if I was living the right way. And
If I was living right.
and it's available to all of us. We just like don't do it, because we don't think we're
Yeah.
allowed to have it.
Mm, truth.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, this place is beautiful. I can't recommend it enough. This guy Carlos has like this large property in the jungle, and it's like they have this house at the top, and then there's a trail that goes down where they have like a big tent, like a big tent. They call it a tent, but it's like a full room that's a tent outside,
Mm,
and that's where we would go to do yoga and then to do the ayahuasca ceremony. So that goes down, and then you can hike down the mountain, and then there's this like river and this incredible waterfall. And yeah, so like the whole thing there was, no cell phones, no electronics of any kind, no, like, not even a book. Like
mm,
the intent was, to be there to disconnect from that kind of stuff and just to like try to heal.
yeah.
And so like the food is all really healthy, like vegan food, that kind of thing. And so the plan was to do ayahuasca 3 times, and it was like day 2 of being there, day 4, and then day 6. And so on those days we would fast, and we would have like yoga in the morning, and we would kind of prepare ourselves for that experience, right?
Mm,
And yeah, so instantly it was just like really an amazing experience before we even took the ayahuasca, because it was just like 9 people there the first night talking about why each of us ended up there and why each of us think it's a good idea to do ayahuasca. And
yeah.
the spectrum was so wide, man. Like it was so,
Mm,
I felt like, I don't know, there were several people that were just like really frustrated with like physical health things, and they just like come to the end of the rope. They're just like, I've heard about this. And
mm,
there's a couple of people like me where like I have never stopped watching YouTube shit about it. So it's like
mm,
I'm there, like I know why I'm there, I guess.
mm.
uh there was just like the whole wide array of people that were like looking for different things, and it instantly felt really vulnerable and really like um warm.
Yeah.
And
That's a
yeah,
good way to set the tone.
it was, man. Yeah, and the people who run it, Carlos, was like uh very clear about saying like, forget who you are here. Like basically just like, we don't need to like sit here and talk about our jobs and talk about who we are and all this stuff. Like the point is to kind of like release all that and just
Mm,
be here.
mhm.
And you could instantly feel that with people. It's like, oh man, I just met these people like an hour ago, and now I'm like learning so much about them because of the way we've like decided to communicate.
Right.
And that already felt like psychedelic.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, that first day, we all go to sleep around like 8 9 p.m., and the anticipation starts like killing us, because we're all like, what they say it's going to be at night, and we have like no schedule for anything. Time is like, we don't keep track of time, right?
Mm.
But all of us are trying to keep track of time. We're like looking at the sun and like trying to be like, how did they do that thing where
Yeah.
like, figured out the sun. um so anyway, they come and wake us up at like midnight, I think. And that's when, we finally started to like release the anticipation and start just like falling asleep. And then they knock at the door and wake us up. So we all get together, and like it's cold outside. We're wearing jackets, and we all like walk down the trail together in the dark. And it already has this like uh ceremonial feel to it, where it's like, okay, we're assembling at night in this place to like do this thing
Hmm.
that is, we don't know what it is. It's like a mystery. And
Mm.
so already it's like working on that level. uh and so we like line up, and they like cleanse us with like it's like lantern type thing filled with tobacco. And oh, you know what, I need to back up 1 second, and because I did forget that earlier in the day we did a Kambo ceremony, which is a
Mm.
venomous frog.
Oh,
And
you
it's
did
the thing
that?
where they like burn holes in your arm, and then they apply it, and then you basically just like vomit like violently for like 5 minutes, and that's kind of it.
Mm.
But it's like yeah, it was I didn't get any sort of like psychedelic visuals or anything, but it was the idea was like it was like a cleansing thing.
Mm.
And what they told us to do with that is like allow it to allow ourselves to like expel everything that we don't need, you know,
Mm.
physically and I guess spiritually.
Mm.
And they said even like look into the bucket that you're vomiting in and like see it, like see what you're getting rid of.
Mm.
And so I say it wasn't psychedelic, but it was psychedelic on the level of like something like going through you. And like, yeah, I'd never experienced that before. It was like, oh,
Mm.
you have to vomit. Like you
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
do it.
yeah,
And yeah, so anyway, that was already kind of like intense. We had that experience. And so
yeah.
okay, back to ayahuasca. uh so yeah, they guide us in, and we all sit on these like mattresses in this long tent, and we're all like, you know, the anticipation is not killing us because we feel very peaceful at this point. And the three shamans are sitting on like this little platform, and we talk for a while. Everyone just kind of is at ease, and then we come up one by one and sit in front of the shaman, and he gives us the cup, and we kind of like look at each other, look into each other's eyes, and sort of like set intentions if we want to.
Mm-hmm.
And then we take the cup, we hug, and then we go back to our mattress, and you basically lay down. And he basically said, just go fall asleep. Don't try, you know, don't try to make anything happen. Don't try to meditate. Just like the drug will wake you up. Or he didn't call it a drug, but the medicine will wake you up, and it will take you where it needs you to go, right?
Mm.
And which is already very different from any psychedelic experience I've had, you know, where it's like that like roller coaster feeling of like, oh, it's coming on or it's gonna come on. Like
Mm.
that was it was different. It was much more like submissive, I guess.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So the most amazing experience I had was like right then. Like I lay down and I start to kind of fall asleep, and then about I'd say 20-30 minutes later, I wake up into just like glorious visions, man. Like just
Wow.
like I don't know how to describe exactly what it was at first, but it was like just the coming on of these like everything just seemed like golden. And
Mm.
I could the shamans were now playing like drum like percussion instruments, and one of them was playing like a flute. And yeah, so like I'm starting to like see the space we're in, but I'm seeing it made out of some ethereal like material. I'm not seeing it
Mm.
like I'm not really seeing it.
Mm.
And I kind of start to I feel all of our presence in there, everyone laying down in this big tent, and I feel the shamans, and I feel all that. And then like in the most casual way, I just see this like figure sit down like in front of me, and he just kind of like sits there, and he's just like looking at me and like patiently waiting. And I'm like, okay, hold
Mm.
hold the phone. And then I see like other people like coming and sitting, and it's very clear to me that like they're not us, like we're here and these are someone else,
Mm.
and they're coming to like welcome us. You know.
Mm.
But they're here, it felt very much like they were just like chilling with us. That sounds like
Mm.
ridiculous, but yeah, so I started to feel that, and I was like, okay, you know, I believe these are some sort of ancestor or some sort of, you know, whatever that I feel like I've come in contact with them before through mushroom trips, but like never so like explicitly. They never
Mm.
like quite just been like, here I am to me.
Mm. Mm.
And so then so the next thing I see is like I'm not seeing inside the room, but I'm seeing like what almost looks like a stage or something. And individual like a young girl, like not young, but like a young woman, like emerges from the shadows, and she kind of like introduces herself to me, and she has this very distinctive like face and personality, and she's got this like like the way she like shows herself to me is like very with like a giggle. It's like she's like bashful, but she's
Mm.
like introducing herself to me. and then she kind of like moves off, and another like very distinctive person comes up and introduces herself to me, and they both have this like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like they're like giggling about it. They're like laughing at the whole thing. So
Mm.
instantly it has this tone of like, oh, I'm touching on some like sacred stuff here, but it's got uh like my sense of humor doesn't have to leave me for this, because
Mm.
it's like they're they're me, you know, they're
Mm.
me on the other side or whatever. And
Whoa.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I started to just like meet them, and when I say meet them, like there's nothing verbal, there's nothing um like it's all kind of just like in their expressions and my feelings.
Mm.
um so the next thing happens is I see who I think is that same like man that I saw early sit down, but whatever it is, it's like sort of a male presence, and he opens this like large sort of ornate door, and he like opens it up, and I see to the other side, and it's like looks like what heaven might look like, as far as
Dang.
like, yeah, there's just like this like light beaming through it, and what I understood was like, I'm gonna show you, like I'm gonna give you like a little glimpse of the other side, the other side of death. And
What?
yeah, and I was like, and I felt myself move through it. It was, again, it wasn't like I wasn't in my body walking, but I was there. It was like a physical space. So I go through that door, and then it becomes kind of like, I remember just erupting into these like golden visions of just like swirling shapes, and like it didn't look like heaven. It didn't look like, but it looked heavenly. It had this like
Mm.
aura about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the music is getting kind of like, it's picking up a little bit, and it feels, the whole time the music feels like very, very connected to what I'm seeing and what I'm
Mm-hmm.
going through.
Mm-hmm.
um and yeah, so I go through that, and then the next like really vivid thing I see is, I see these people. They look kind of the same way. Like, I don't know how to describe them, but they're like, there's like an ethereal thing about them. Like, I'm seeing them clearly, but they don't look like I don't know. It sounds weird, but like almost they look kind of ghostly, I guess, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it's these people like lining up, and it's like I'm in like a train station,
Mm-hmm.
and I see them lining up, and they're like, there's like maybe five of them waiting, but there's like a very like relaxed nature to it. Like, it's not like any bus station I've ever been to. you know, there's like,
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I got the sense like, oh, these are people waiting to come back into life, you know, like they're
Whoa.
about to board and come back and like rejoin the earth. And, I just felt it. It was like the cyclical thing, right?
Huh.
Like, explicitly, it felt like reincarnation, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is also interesting because like I've always like had hints of that, or like I've thought about that under the influence of psychedelics, but I've never so clearly been like, here's
Mm.
this image. Um, and then the next thing, uh, the music, someone starts playing some kind of shaker that sounds like a snake, and it kind of like subtly comes in, but like suddenly all of my visuals turn into like snakes, and
Whoa.
yeah, it's like this like rattling thing, and it's like everything becomes snake like, even if it's not snakes, everything becomes moving like snakes.
Wow.
And yeah, and and then from that I suddenly am like hovering above the something, and it turns out to be this like giant serpent, but it looks like it's made of like light,
A giant what?
like a giant snake or like a serpent.
Oh. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and it's like made of like it's a serpent, but it's not made of like, again, it's like some weird ethereal material.
Mm.
But and then I'm like, oh, I realized that snake is the train that people were waiting for. Like, that was the transportation into the
What?
next life. Yeah. So it was like my little thing of like, oh, a train, that's kind of mundane. Like, the other side of that was like, this is the vehicle. Like, you don't know shit.
Yeah.
Should I stop swearing? Is that not a good
It doesn't
indicator?
matter.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Um, yeah. So that that was incredible. And then that was really like the most intense visuals I got, or I say visuals, but you know what I mean. It was like
Mm.
the most like intensely real and clear things I saw, and the
Mm-hmm.
most memorable from that trip. Um, and then like the other thing I'll say about ayahuasca that was maybe you have some insight about, because I say I've read about it a lot, but I haven't done that much research on like other people's experiences.
Mm.
But like it was really interesting. Like once I got through that part where it was like really specific like visuals and specific like sort of guided feeling that I was being shown things, it kind of settled back, and I kept that like vision, but I started, it kind of gave me room to like think and start to like reflect. And yeah, and then I spent the night just kind of like feeling like amazing, like feeling just like incredibly in tune with like nature and like whatever we are, you know.
Mm.
And but then I was like, but then it was like the nausea starts to like set in around that point.
Mm.
And then like, oh, it really sets in.
Wow.
And yes, and I started like, I threw up at some point, and then you're hearing other people start to throw up around then. And then like I started like, basically the nausea feeling is so like intense that it like takes you over, and like if you don't throw up, you're just gonna feel like horrific. So I started like gagging myself, and most of us were like gagging ourselves. So it becomes this like thing where you're having this like one of the most like complete feelings you've ever had in your life, but there's like this like, you're like, you're trying to curb your nausea, and you're also like hearing other people start to have like a pretty like bad time, you know, physically, but
Mm-hmm.
you know that they're also having like these
Mm.
incredible experiences. And so that all became sort of part of it. Like have
Mm.
you're like, you start kind of facing down some of what's wrong, what's going wrong with you, and like you start trying to heal. And one thing that really stuck in my head is like uh this girl Marcella, who was like the yoga teacher and one of the shamans. She was incredible, and she started playing a guitar like toward the end, and she would sing sometimes too. And she had this like incredibly like earthy voice, and she would sing in Spanish, and then she would mostly sing in Spanish. Um, but she had one song where she was singing like, I don't remember the first lines, but the second line was like La medicina está trabajando, and
Mm.
it was like, you know, the medicine is working. And that was like, that kept becoming this like, I saw this like line of like ants marching, and I was seeing like the medicine doing that through my body. And like,
Mm.
you know, it was just like this really amazing feeling of like, we are having like, we're doing medicine here. Like we're having like um a healing session, and it's not fully like just out of fun, and it's not fully out of like wonderment. It's also like some necessary shit you should do for yourself, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Wow, man. That's incredible. Yeah, I was expecting to hear some shit, but you really told me some shit.
Good, but yeah, I
Damn,
haven't
man.
really like fully told anyone like I've told like one friend like the whole story, and I kind of like, I don't know. One interesting thing was that I kind of, well, actually, never mind. I don't really want to know what I was about.
Still
It's not really
processing.
relevant. Yeah, exactly.
Still processing.
But yeah,
That's crazy, man. What about some of the other people? Did you hear any other like notable experiences?
yeah. A couple of the ones that stuck with me, like, I don't know. It didn't seem like, I didn't get a lot of people describing like the kind of thing that I experienced that first night. Um, as far as just like really psychedelic visions that you could like describe, but incredible things. There's this one sort of like older couple from Florida, and the the guy was like, the guy was like about 50, I think. And I started like talking to these people like early on, and like they were just like really kind people, and their son or their kids were like just going off to college. The wife had come to this retreat 1 year before, and that was her first experience with like any sort of psychedelic or anything, and it had like radically changed her, like made her like a way more patient and loving and not angry person. And her husband, like, this is something he would never even think to do. He's like a Haitian immigrant and very conservative in a way, and like um but yeah, she like convinced him because his mother had died like a few months before, and he had been like really struggling like processing it. Like it kind of like broke him because he was like incredibly close to her. And that was kind of why she thought it would be a good idea to bring him, and she kind of just like wore him down and convinced him like come give it a shot, you know, instead of going on vacation and like Cabo or whatever, we can like go have this thing, you know. And so you could tell he was kind of hesitant, but incredibly nice guy, very like cool. Like we just like really lucked out with like the kind of people that were there for a week, just to spend a whole week just like sitting around talking to, you know.
Yeah.
But I just like love these people, and yeah, so this guy was like having that thing with his um mother, and his first night he had a vision of her in a choir, like in like a heavenly choir, and she was singing. And he said he understood that like on earth that was her favorite thing to do. She sang in her church choir. And he had this vision of like, oh, she's still doing it, like she's still out there doing it. And she's, you know, she's not gone. And he like really needed to see that and feel that, I think. And yeah, that kind of blew my mind the first night.
Wow. Because especially because yours had to do kind of with like the afterlife and that type of thing.
Yeah, it's true.
So y'all got a peek behind the veil.
Yeah.
Dang, man.
Yeah, it was wild. And one other thing that really stuck with me was there's this girl who was like, she was like 21 years old, and you know, she'd done like mushrooms a few times, like at, you know, music festivals and stuff like that. She seemed like, you know, around probably where you and I were at that age, like experimenting with, just starting to experiment with like psychedelics. But she had like she like the first thing she mentioned when we were all talking is like her issues with her mother, and like how she just like she didn't get like a lot of like love from her mother, and like that kind of, like she's very aware of how that affected her and still affects her. I think she was trying to work through some of that. But after that first trip, she was like, we were all talking in a group, and she was saying how like she uh felt from that ayahuasca trip, like she felt that she started to get that like love, that unconditional love that she had been like missing and like, you know, starving for. And it helped her understand like where her mother was coming from, and it also helped her like start feel that that was there, you know, she didn't need that from anyone because it was
Right.
there.
Right. Right.
That just like moved me like very deeply, you know.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing to just like have shown to you, you know.
Yeah, that's like life changing.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, dude.
Dang, man. Um, it's insane how it's like so ayahuasca is so like Mr. Fix It about about all this stuff. Like it's just so, or Mrs. Fix It, since ayahuasca is considered the grandmother or whatever.
Yeah, she was definitely a missus, I think.
Yeah. Dang, man. Well, yeah, it's just like so interesting how it like knows exactly what's wrong and or like what needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe not every single time that happens, but like at least a few times out of all of them, you know, like maybe it was just you and then those other two that you told me that were like that profound. I don't know. Maybe everyone had their own version of like a profound experience, but just seems so like it's just weird, right? It's like there really is some kind of intelligence working behind this, or like maybe we have that knowledge inside of us and it's just like so deep in our soul that it's like this brings it out or what. But based on my experience, I lean towards some kind of like animating force behind them.
Yeah. It's hard not to feel that way when you're in its grasp, you know.
Yes.
it's not that it always like, some of, some my other 2 nights were actually very different than that first night, and some of it was much more like cryptic, and some of it was even like unpleasant, and like, you know I was having like visuals, but I was kind of like getting caught in little like my little traps, like thought traps, and I was like,
Mm,
you know the thing sometimes it's like that's where you start like seeing things in like from different extremes, and you're like, oh, maybe everything's this, maybe everything's
right.
actually this. uh some of it is confusing, but that doesn't mean that it's not like also for you and like meant for you to like see and think about. And
Hmm.
yeah, a lot of that stuff ended up being really helpful for me too on the other side of it. And
Hmm.
the shamans were even saying like there's things that like they experienced on their first ayahuasca trip that they only started to like actually understand like years down the road.
Wow.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you'll probably be processing this stuff for a while, but like, do you feel like there's anything starting to kind of germinate as like your takeaway, or like your what you're going to integrate from this, or do you still really not know yet?
it's a good question. I think like it was such a different type of psychedelic experience, and it was one that really made me want to start like living as healthy as I know I should, and like being more mindful about how I stimulate myself, and like um just like feeding information in my brain, doing things that I know aren't like good for my like mind or like good for my like peace of mind, I guess.
Hmm.
So like I think the fact of like doing a thing like this where there's people helping you, and there's like, you're experiencing healing just by like being somewhere in nature and like
True.
existing, and just
Right.
constantly remembering that's enough. Like, you know
Right. Right. Right.
um and like not only me having those experiences, but like the other people, like a lot of the several of the other people that I got really close to, they were like way more like career oriented people who, like it's much like, I don't know, like they haven't spent their lives like smoking weed and playing guitar and like thinking too much about the Beatles and shit, like they've spent their life like working, becoming
Right.
lawyers and doctors, and not to say that
Right.
they haven't had also amazing experiences, because they had, but
Yeah.
uh I don't know, in a way it helped me be like, oh man, like it helped me feel it helped me feel like confident in my like approach and my choices so far in life, and like, the things that I know are of true value, that I think that psychedelics have helped me like nurture and foster like for my adult life.
Hmm.
It reaffirmed some of that. It showed me some of the ways that I yeah, like I said, I am like lazy in certain ways, and I don't make good choices for myself sometimes, but it shows you all that in like a loving way,
Mm.
a way that isn't to be like, oh, you must change, like change
Hmm.
everything, you suck. It's like it's the good version of that. It's like
Yeah.
Mother Nature being like, patting you on the head and being like, all right, you just gotta look this way, and you gotta look at this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. Yeah. I feel like that's definitely sounds like you do have like something to kind of take away already.
Yeah, I think so, man. If nothing else, like it was so grounded in nature and love that it was like something that I had kind of I think I'd started to get very heady about my like psychedelic experiences, and start to let other people's opinions like affect them in a way, like all the like, oh, it's a simulation, all the like the ways that you can start to just be like, okay, well, if we're in a giant alien god simulation, then where's the center of that? Like you
Hmm.
start like thinking like these like paranoid sci-fi ways that
Mm.
I'm not saying don't have a use, but this was something so like it brought me back to like the mysterious nature of it, and the like loving
Nice.
the whole like pursuit, So
Nice. Dude, we should do a video about that acid in the desert Joshua
oh
tree
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, but we will.
Interestingly enough, yeah, I would love to talk about that. Interestingly enough, one of my insights, what like something was specifically shown to me during ayahuasca that clarified like some of that journey, because that
Really.
was like a nightmare experience, and it showed me like that whoever they are that are like helping us through these like visions and stuff, like they can wear different masks sometimes, and sometimes they're
Mm.
like I saw this like scary mask, and it was like I was being communicated to like, yeah, that experience was like you were you were you were not approaching it with like respect. So like we showed you some like kind of terrifying stuff, you know. I don't know.
Whoa.
I have like a lot to
Yeah.
say about that, but yeah, that's
Whoa.
interesting. You
We'll have
mentioned
to
that.
get into that when we talk about it.
Yeah, man.
Dang, man. Well, the other thing I was wondering is like, if what would you say to me, like if I was about to go do ayahuasca next week, like what would be your like warning or advice?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I would say on one hand, like absolutely trust your instinct if that's where it's guiding you, because it's easy to start to second guess yourself when if you're doing something like that, because it's like can you know it takes a lot, and you can be like, oh, maybe it's not the time, and like I don't know. The whole thing was like, oh, this is where I should be, you know, like once I got there. But everything up to that was like anxiety. So
Right.
I would say just trust your like whatever led you there, trust that, and yeah, like take take care of your health in the weeks preceding. Like they gave
Mm.
us like a specific diet and like a
Mm-hmm.
thing you could do to like make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think that because ayahuasca is like a physically demanding thing to do, like you have to be like the better you feel the better, but also like you have to be prepared for some like it's not pleasant, like the throwing up and the nausea and all stuff. It's like it's a lot more than I thought it was. Like
Yeah.
I was not prepared for that, but it's something I do believe it's all part of the experience, and there's
Mm-hmm.
I feel stronger, and I feel like um yeah, I feel like since it was part of the experience, I got the like authentic like journey through my mind and body and back. Like
Yes.
it was, yeah, I'll definitely never forget that.
Word. Okay. Thanks, man. The thing that like interests me most about ayahuasca is like how they use music and how it like those songs. I don't know like what tradition or like what kind of shamans those were, but a lot of these tribes and stuff have a history of, you know, using ayahuasca, and they made their songs like because they know what they do. So it's
Yeah,
like it's
yeah,
already like a built-in like something that's been developed over time, and it's almost like a technology or something like, but it's just super interesting how the music is used and it like works so well to like achieve healing or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a mind bender to think about. I've heard Terrence McKenna talk about that, like them there being ayahuasca songs that have like a visual component to them that everyone is
Mm-hmm.
seeing, like
Mm-hmm.
that it's built of something visual. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that before, and I've never like I've been thinking about that since I heard it. 'Cause I'm like, well, that's like the most amazing thing I've ever heard of in reality.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, this was interesting because like these shamans were not like indigenous to a tribe that like has a history of that. They were all like native Costa Rican people.
Mm.
Some like grew up, they had different backgrounds, but it was definitely something that they had learned from
Mm-hmm.
shamans, you know, from like indigenous shamans. And as far as the music, I wanted to ask them, but for some reason I just never did. What kind of music they were playing, because
Mm-hmm.
um, it felt very true and felt very like I know that it was connected to the music of like the ayahuasca music, because they at a certain point in the night they would like play recorded music when everyone starts kind of falling asleep, and it was like uh, again, I don't know exactly what it was, but I know a lot of it was like authentic like ayahuasca music. Some of it was about
Mm-hmm.
ayahuasca and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like a whole other thing that just like the music they were playing felt just it gave you that weird feeling of like, do they know like what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing here, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like this going, you know, I think we've had that experience when you take like psychedelics at a concert, even where you're just like, oh, they're doing something that they're not even like fully in control of. It's like they're just letting it happen, and that's why it's part of the fabric of this whole experience. But yeah, they were definitely playing music that felt authentic, and it was also uh, like I said, some of it was in Spanish, some of it was like
Mm-hmm.
just instrumental and stuff. But but yeah, then the recorded music was like, I learned so much just laying there. Because the other thing of it is like, I've gotten used to like doing a mushroom trip and then being like, oh, once it kind of recedes, I'll like, okay, I'm gonna go do something. I'm gonna go write a song, or I'm gonna go watch a movie or something.
Mm-hmm.
And this was interesting because you lay there for the rest of the night. You don't go do anything. You just lay there with it, and it kind of fades, but you're still thinking and you're still processing, and it's like a little bit of an endurance thing too, because again, you're not feeling that great a lot of the time. You're feeling kind of like you can't wait for the morning to come at a certain point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the music is so like so just like pure and beautiful, and it also is like it's got this like raw quality to it that isn't it kind of matches that like kind of like fighting through nausea to get to the most beautiful thing you've ever heard or felt. It kind of a lot of it had this like earthy quality to it that was like it wasn't like pleasant to taste, you know, like the ayahuasca, but it was like it was getting at something so like good and so true, and also like free. It was very like uh I don't know if it was a lot of it was like very like repetitive, but in this way where like it would just build and build and build and build, and it would lose its sense of time, and you lose your sense of time. Very interesting like timing as far as like chord changes. There was a lot of complex stuff that felt very like just like natural, but like I don't know how to describe it. Like I learned new ways to like change chords because just like
Right.
sitting there listening to it, like, oh yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
You can just change like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
But I would
that, man.
love to, yeah, I would love to experience like some people that have like taken in that, like specifically like taken in that tradition from
Mm-hmm.
where they're from, and like,
Yeah. It's called Icaros.
mm,
Icaros. That's the name of the songs or the music.
okay,
The tribe that I really want to do it with is called the Shipibo. And they have this like their clothes, they put patterns into the clothes that are like kind of like resonate with the visuals that you get when you're on ayahuasca. Um, and when you go there, you can actually have them like sew the patterns into your clothes,
ooh,
and I think that'd be really cool. And then yeah, they have the songs and stuff, of course, but yeah, so that's who I want to go do it with. I think they might have some in Mexico, but most of it is in South America and stuff like that.
wow,
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
I want to go to there.
Yeah, dude, you should check out Mexico.
Yeah, I'm, yeah, I have a lot of questions about your trip, even though I watched, yeah, your video was like great, and I feel like yeah, the way you're like documenting things while talking about them, it's like
Mm,
you're getting a really nice little thing here
it
going.
worked out. Yeah,
Yeah, dude.
it's funny how it worked out because I actually something messed up on my camera like while I was recording that. And
Mhm.
so I actually didn't have any footage of me talking. So I had to find like the perfect way to make like the footage that I took of the pyramids and stuff. I'd use that as like a space filler because like some kind of technical thing like
Yeah,
killed my footage. So it ended up working out. Yeah. And I just like took videos of basically like a little bit of everything, and then I also wrote in my journal the night after,
yeah,
so I could remember like in sequence what happened, because I don't think if I would have waited as long as it took for me to like get home and make the video and stuff, I don't think I would have remembered all of the details that well.
yeah, yeah.
But because I wrote everything down chronologically, like that night after, whatever it was, like I was able to tell it in chronological order. And since I
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
little bit of footage from everything, I was able to like actually put the things there that I was talking about. So
Cool.
it worked out, man.
I should start writing things down because
Yeah.
this is the first time. Yeah, the not just the ayahuasca thing, but like I just wrote about every day at the ayahuasca thing, even though I wasn't, even when I wasn't doing ayahuasca, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like so much. Even looking at it now, I'm like so grateful that I did that. I don't know why I don't take the time to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why, like every time I trip, I have to bring pen and paper, like, or a journal or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
And sometimes it just devolves into nonsense. Like maybe writing it
Yeah,
down the
yeah,
next day is a better way to like actually make sense of it. But like sometimes you can capture a thought or like a feeling when you're in the middle of a trip. But
yeah.
a lot did I ever tell you about the time I was tripping on acid and then like I was like having all these revelations. It was like my big trip, right? Where that like really like kicked things off, like my interest for all this.
Yeah.
Um I was writing because I felt like I was having like 1,000 revelations per second. So I was like, I have to write this down, secrets to the universe. And then I was writing, and then the words were like flying off the paper. And
Ooh.
so, like, because they were flying off the paper, I was like, I thought that they were 3D. So I would like write on the layer behind it. But then whenever you look at it the next day, I was just writing on top of whatever. And then I was
That
also
rules.
doing, yeah, I was doing like fractal sentences where it was like ad libs, like it was like I want to go to the, and then I would draw like branches and be like park, cafeteria.
Yeah.
That's not what I wrote, but that was like the structure of like I wrote a sentence that had three different, it was like multiple choice, like, but that was
Damn,
how my
dude.
brain was working. And I feel
Just
like
like let me invent 3D language right quick.
dang, no, that's actually a
Wow.
thing though, because that was the same time that I also saw like that 3D language type of stuff. It's like that. It was like a neon green Christmas tree. It was
Mhm.
like 3 feet tall, and then it looked like a mixture of like Hindu, Sanskrit, and then Hebrew and Arabic, and it looked like
Whoa.
math and geometry like all tied into one. It was like this sacred mathematical language calligraphy thing that was like 3D neon light. So like
That's pretty
3D
cool.
language is just like a downgrade from that.
Yeah. Wow. That is wild.
So yeah, man. Well, I really appreciate you telling me the story, man. It was
Yeah, man.
super interesting. And yeah, if you remember more of it, you should let me know and we'll talk and hang out.
Yeah, I'd love to. The more I talk
Yeah.
about it, the more I'm like, the more I'm piecing it back together. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was can't recommend it enough. Like
Yeah.
I literally broke. I went completely broke doing it and came back just like in a stressful way. But I'm so glad I did it. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything. So
Yeah.
go do
Nice.
it. Go
Well,
do it. Go do it.
all right. Right now. All righty,
All right, man. Yeah,
dude.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, totally, man. It was fun. I'll talk to you later, man.
All right, brother. Bye.
Bye.